So we're excited to have you today to motivate our online learners. We are GCU's Canyon Professional Development. We are blessed and fortunate to be with you every Wednesday at 10 o'clock live, and also on our YouTube channel. You'll see lots of tips of the day over there. We'll talk about that as we move into today's presentation. We are PD with purpose. Our purpose is granted by a wonderful team today. We are blessed and lucky. You can see I've circled his little head here. This is Peter Mokert. He will be our prayer lead today. Peter is a director of Catholic schools here for us at Grand Canyon University. He's an alliance director, kind of really has those relationships with all of our Catholic schools, and we appreciate him praying with us today. Peter, welcome aboard. We have a whole team that supports us in everything we do, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to support you and what you do for your kiddos every single day, so thank you for that. I am Corey Arraza, the Director of STEM Outreach, 17 years plus in teaching from computer systems, ESL, Spanish, and STEM integration. My colleague, Carolyn Flora, she's going to introduce herself now.
There, my name is Carolyn Flora, and I'm the K-12 Outreach and Support Program Manager. I've been in education for over 23 years, and during that time, I've had the pleasure of teaching grades K through 8. I've worked under Title I programs. I've held district positions. I've been all over the place, but one of my most important jobs is that I am the mother of 6 beautiful children.
That's a lot of children, and we love you for learning so much about parenting and education so you can help us be better mothers and better teachers. Go ahead, Marnie.
Hi, I'm Marnie Landry. I'm the K-12 STEM Outreach Manager for Canyon Professional Development at GCU. I taught high school science and STEM integration for 16 years, and I'm really happy to be here with you this week. You will know we are kind of going fast this beginning part this week because we kind of crammed a lot into this webinar. So again, I want to repeat, do not worry. Everything will be posted in the YouTube discussion notes and on our YouTube channel with this video. So I'd like to introduce our very special guest, Chloe Zwicker, and I'll let her tell us about herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Chloe. I am the live lesson presenter here at GCU. I'm also a recent graduate from the university, so I did graduate in December with my degree in biology with an emphasis in pre-physical therapy. However, with my role with the university now is to share educational live streams with students across the country. So I'm really excited to be here today just to share with you all what that looks like.
Excellent. Thank you.
Chloe, we are so blessed and lucky to have you today. Lopes up, and Marnie is a molecular biologist, so this is cool. That's a shout out to STEM. Our STEM majors are so talented. They're not only doing STEM, but they're also doing STEM videos. So Chloe, we can't wait for you to tell us what it's all about.
I'm excited.
But thank you. Before we do that, remember that we are here with you each week to support our why, to empower, educate, and inspire you, our community, so that you take action to fulfill your purpose and serve others so that they may fulfill their purpose. Remember, we want you to take action today, so whatever you learn, please feel free. In fact, we encourage you to share that with another colleague, your students, and empower them to fulfill their purpose. So thank you for being with us today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marnie. She's going to tell you a little bit about the Toolbox if you haven't met our Tool Masters before, and I'll be harassing you in the chat asking for a Tool Master. Go ahead, Marnie.
So we have lots of frequent flyers on our guest list. I recognize a lot of those names. We need someone to step up from the audience to be our tool master for the day. And the tool master, what you will do is as we go through the webinar and introduce some tools that you can use in your classroom, we just want you to list them down. At the end, you'll see the same picture of the toolbox, and at that time, we'll call on you and ask you to paste that list back in the chat box. Not a hard job, it's just keeping track, but the best part is you'll have the absolute list of all the tools that we have. You know, sometimes you go to a webinar and you see all these things and you forget them. As the tool master, you'll have the list. So I need one of you 49 people out there to just step up and volunteer to be our tool master. Who's it going to be? We can't move forward till we have one. So who's going to be in charge? And again, we'll help you out, but we need someone just to keep a list of those tools. Yay!
Apple Melissa steps up. Thank you, Melissa. Oh my goodness. Roosevelt School District. A big thumbs up and a lopes up to Roosevelt School District. Thank you so much, Apple Melissa. Melissa Creeder from Apple, a PD specialist over there at Roosevelt. We appreciate you being the tool master. All right. Well, with
and I'd
that
like to
said,
point out with her, if you are an Apple school or Apple district and you need or want to become one and would like some support, reach out to us or Melissa and we can absolutely hook you up.
we will connect you. Really good point. Thanks for mentioning that, Marnie. So as we move into today's lesson, let me see. Carolyn, would you like to set our stage for us?
Sure. So if we look at our quote, it says, as your kids grow up, they may forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And I think it's really important that we reflect on that today when we're talking about motivating students in a remote setting. We've been focusing a lot on our content and our standards, which is what we always do, but we need to remind ourselves that we need to come full circle and remember that it is so important that we are still making our students feel connected and that you're building community, even though you're maybe not seeing each other every day. So very appropriate quote.
Thank you. And for someone who has 6 children, I think this is really important, right?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Carolyn. So today's goals and objectives. This is really important that we let you know because we have a lot of goals and objectives. We hope we get to them all today. We want you to understand how relationships, rigor, and relevance work together to increase student motivation and equity through remote learning. Yes, relevance and equity are bolded on purpose. We're really going to focus on how important those two pieces are today. We're going to learn at least 3 strategies to motivate your online learners, including shared experiences, sense of community, and using incentives. Hint, hint, Toolmaster. That's some strategies there. After we're finished with those strategies, you're going to evaluate the webinar and earn a PD certificate. That's how you earn your PD certificate. And it's also how you tell us what you want to see more of in our webinar. So please don't forget to do the evaluation. The name of today's survey will be motivating the online learner. And then we'll have a closing prayer with Peter Moker. Thank you so much for being here today. Okay, I talked fast. It's time to get into some business. First things first, we're going to talk about Pear Deck. Pear Deck is a Google Slides and or Microsoft PowerPoint. You can use it with either Google or Microsoft, but it's an interactive slideshow. So if you haven't used Pear Deck before, you're in for a treat. If you have used it before, pop in the chat for us how you use it, what you like about it. Please tell us anything that other people might really enjoy knowing. So you can see here, this is I'm going to ask you in a moment, and if you're a quick learn here, you want to go to joinpd.com and you'll wait for the code. We're going to give you a question here from 0 to 100%. What percent of your students are engaged in meaningful remote learning? But I want you to be fully engaged while we do it. So here I'm showing you the back of the house. This is our Pear Deck slides. This is a slideshow. I could make it more than one slide, but right now I've just got one slide. And I'm going to show you that over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to actually close this for right now so you can see exactly what it looks like. Up here in the add-ons area, you're going to click Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on. This is after you've installed Pear Deck, and open the add-on. Once you open the add-on, you'll see this navigation bar here on your right. Okay, spoiler alert, this is the premium version that I'm using because Pear Deck, of course, like many other vendors, are giving this away for free right now. But Marnie always makes a really good point in saying, Corey, we're only going to use the freebie stuff because not everybody's going to freemium quite yet, right? So this is what we're doing. The number selection, for example, when we ask our students a question, which makes it interactive, all these first 4 are free. And then these 2 under here are premium version. So in my tip of the day, you'll see a premium version, and Amanda's going to pop that tip of the day in the chat so that you have some extra resources for Pear Deck. But here, what I want to do is click Start Lesson. So once I click Start Lesson, you're going to see an option. You can either have a student-paced activity or an instructor-paced activity. For our purposes today, we're going to do instructor-paced. This is great for the blended learning classroom where you're in front of your students in a projector scenario. A student-paced is also wonderful for asynchronous learning. So I'm going to click on that button there, and you're going to see on your screen, well, you're going to go to joinpd.com joinpd.com, and I'll show you. I'm going to do it right at the same time. It's loading. So I'm asking you to go to joinpd.com on any device. It could be your phone, your computer, and then add that code in. So I'm going to do it myself so that I kind of shut my mouth for a minute. Oh, look, you guys are so fast. There's already a student in here. This is fantastic. So clearly you know what you're doing faster than I know what I'm doing. And I literally am just using my telephone here, my iPhone. I have an Android device. I can do it there too. TQOGX. All right, here I go. Now I can become a student as well. All right, and I know that Marnie and Carolyn are doing it as well, either on devices or computers. Kind of fun. Ask you, how are you feeling today? You can skip it if you're one of those kids. I'm pretty sure my son would skip this right now, but I am feeling good right now. So I'm gonna click, yeah, I'm feeling good. So I'm gonna, so here it tells me 16 students are connected. So I'm ready to start. So you can still join if you're not ready yet. I've started the question, and it basically gives you, you know, that same question. So hopefully you already know what that is, from 0 to 100%. Give us your ideas here.
I want to add 2 things. Someone in the chat did not care for my wording of the question. So let me rephrase. What % of your students do you think are engaged in meaningful remote learning, just from your perspective right now? And also notice that even though she navigated away from the screen, the code is in the upper right-hand corner on the screen too. So you can still, more students could join. Okay, thank you.
Very, very good point. Thank you. And jump in anytime, Marnie or Carolyn, because I know that the 2 of you use this as well. And Carolyn uses it with Microsoft. So if you have questions there, let us know. So I'm looking at the teacher view here, and I'm going to click on the button that says show responses. Now remember, if you're in the area of projecting, depending on what you want to show on the projector, right? If everybody's not supposed to be seeing each other's answers, you don't have to show those. So it defaults to hide your responses. You can show them. I can also lock out your screens if I'm done having you answer that question. But Marnie and Carolyn, look at those numbers. What do you think? Kind of all over the board, huh?
I do, but you know what I also see here? I see a beautiful math lesson.
Yes.
Yes.
Scatter plot, people. I'm excited. Yeah. And what's really interesting is we're kind of bunched up low, 50% or less, right? So it's hard. Yeah, it certainly isn't. I think that word equity comes to mind, doesn't it? So let's really we'll talk about that and some strategies to pull the more students, the better, right? I can also lock your screen. So for example, right now, nope, I want all eyes on me, people. Don't talk anymore, right? So you should see your screen is locked out. The other piece is now I'm going to unlock your screen. I'm going to click a new prompt. I love this feature. Some of these are premium. Remember, I'm on the premium version, but you can use any of these. For example, at the beginning of class to give students, what do you wonder about today's topic? Or at the end of class, for example, pause and write what you've just learned. So I'll go ahead and click that. You should be able to see that on your screen. You can take a minute to tell me what you've learned, but right now I'm just a quick demo. We saw what we needed to see, 50% and lower. We know that it's tough to motivate our online learners, especially now. Whew, my 16-year-old, let me tell you. Now I can also show my responses. Oh, look at you guys are so good. You've learned a great online resource, how to use Pear Deck. And you know what, Marnie and Carolyn? I think we have really good students in this class. What do you guess? Holy bejeebies.
We have
You
engaged
guys are
learners.
fast typers, super engaged learners. But isn't this a great tool to be able to know each student in your class is or is not participating? And then you can take those second tier kind of strategies. Now do we make a phone call? Now do we communicate with parents? Now do we talk with our principals and our associates, our counselors, to help us help them? Super fun. Thanks for playing, you guys. I am going to end our slideshow at this point because we have a lot of great strategies. I can name this and then I can produce reports, etc. So that's a little bit about Pear Deck. We're going to do a little takeaway now, and I'm going to pop right back over to our slideshow. And what is it that you took away? In fact, I think a lot of that was already a takeaway, what we just saw, right? So I think I saw a lot of takeaways. This is a great slide, however, to, just take a break and ask your students, what did you think of Pear Deck, right? So feel free to add that in the chat. I know a lot of you said, hey, I learned a new online resource.
And I'd like to also, the tip for definitely for Pear Deck, but also the takeaway about the numbers and the spread of the numbers we saw. Like, so we had someone up near 100, which I found interesting. And then we had down to 30, down around 30 or 35. So what are some of your takeaways there about that widespread? As you're thinking about that and typing the box, I want to bring something up. A friend of mine who's teaching right now has freshmen and juniors, and she's having nearly 100% engagement, meaning she's seeing the students, she's having back and forth with the students on a regular basis. With the freshmen, the juniors, about 30%. And we're talking similar populations, same school, same everything, vast difference. And so that's just something to think about. I wonder why. And then second, I was on Twitter this morning and I saw a teacher who was just commenting about how really sad that she kept seeing comments about that the reason that she wasn't having high student engagement is because she failed to build those relationships, and it was breaking her heart. So, you know, we can't just rail. Yes, it's important about making those relationships, but there's more to it than that, right?
There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
But Marnie, you make a really great point. That relationship building is really hard to do online. And for those of you who were maybe up, past that 50% marker, what are you doing? Could you share that with us in the chat? What are you doing that you think is really making a difference in that engagement? We'd love to hear that. So continue that conversation in the chat. I'd love to glean from your expertise in that regard.
Absolutely.
So, so I'm going to pass the baton over to Marnie and talk to us a little bit about relevance, considering your Twitter conversations this morning.
Right. So we hear these terms, relationships, relevance, and rigor. Those are important for in-person instruction, but they are equally important when we talk about virtual instruction or remote learning. And so that one teacher, people were telling her students weren't engaged because she hadn't built those relationships. Well, relevance and rigor play into that too. And I'm going to focus on relevance. And one way to think about relevance is equity through shared experiences. I think sometimes when we use the word equity, it's often used only in the terms of financial, thinking about financial equity. And I'm constantly hearing about it, well, my students don't all have a device or connectivity. True, but that is not the only type of equity to think about. So your students come to you with all different backgrounds and life experiences. And so one way to build equity is through sharing an experience. Now, today we'll be talking about virtual shared experiences, but those are really important. Even if everybody has a device, they're not going to have the same background knowledge. So one way.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our special guest is here today to talk about how to create that shared experience that's not just that relevance for the person-to-person contact, but also for content relevance. So I'm going to let Chloe kind of take over and kind of introduce what she does, and then give us a little demonstration of what she does and what she has to offer you and your students.
Great, thank you, Marnie. Before I get into a quick demo of what one of our lessons that we offer looks like, I do just want to share more about what GCU Live Lessons are. So these lessons are educational tools that we've developed both for educators and their students to help provide them with worthwhile educational experiences that they can participate in at no cost and in the safety of their own homes. So these lessons require little to no materials, and they can also be accessed through Zoom on their live stream platform using a smartphone or a tablet or a computer of some sort. And this is really important because it does help students stay engaged, ask questions, and interact with the presenter live throughout the entire lesson. I teach 2 of the lessons. They are pre-health focused lessons from the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, one of which I do want to share with you today. I'm just going to share that with you right now so you can see an example of what your students would be experiencing if they do partake in one of these lessons. So this is just going to be a small portion of the corrective exercises lesson. So just to get us started, if you are not sitting right now, just go ahead and take a seat and get comfortable. And then we're just going to start to pay attention to the positioning of our shoulders, soldiers, our shoulders, our shoulders, which may sound unfamiliar because you're not used to paying attention to that specific positioning, but odds are we are all in one of two positions. One is going to be more of a slouched position, which from the side, you typically have a rounded upper back, your shoulders are pushed forward, and then your head typically does come forward as well and bends back. This is a very exaggerated position I'm showing, but we are usually somewhere along the spectrum of this position, which is actually called kyphosis or kyphotic position, and we would consider this poor posture. Some of us may be on the other end of the spectrum where we do tend to have a healthy posture, which we would call a neutral posture, where our heads aren't necessarily tilted forwards or backwards, and our shoulders are aligned with our ears. So we're in a relaxed, neutral position, which is going to be a much healthier posture for us to be sitting in. I mentioned that that first position was kyphosis, and that's actually the most common posture we're going to find ourselves in, especially if we're sitting at a desk with our hands up on a table, or we're slouching into a cushioned seat or something like that. And this is especially relevant right now because we do live in a sedentary culture with or without a pandemic going on. So many of our students are going to be sitting at school in their desks, or now at home on a couch in their bed or at a table. So many of us do spend most of our days sitting, which puts us at a much higher risk for a multitude of injuries and diseases, specifically cardiovascular disease or joint strains, muscle tears, pinched nerves. A multitude of things can arise from living a sedentary lifestyle. So it's very important for us to be aware of the different ways that we can combat some of the impact that a sedentary lifestyle has on our muscles. So I'm just going to show you guys two stretches here that we can perform on a daily basis just to help prevent maintaining that poor posture. The first stretch I want us to do is going to be focusing on our pectoralis major muscle, which is your chest muscle. This is the muscle that's very responsible for pulling your shoulders into that forward rounded position. So that muscle is going to be very tight and contracted for a long period of time. And so in order to combat that, we want to work on stretching out that muscle and opening up our chest. You can do the stretch in your chair right now, or if you have a doorway or a tall shelf, you can use that as well. However, we can just start by sitting towards the end of your seat so that your feet are flat on the ground and you have about a 90-degree angle at your knees. That'll help us stay in a healthy neutral position with our hips. Then you want to pull your shoulders back so they are aligned with your ears, and keep your head in a neutral position as well, so you're not tilted forward or backwards. You're just comfortable and relaxed. You're then going to take one arm at a time, and you're going to hold it up at a 90-degree angle. And when you're ready to stretch, you're just going to pull your arm back towards the wall behind you without rotating your whole torso. You want to keep your torso stable, but just move your arm back. And that's really going to help open up this chest area. You can do this with a shelf, like I said, or in a doorway. And essentially, if you are in a doorway, you can use both arms and lean into that doorway. And what that's going to do is really intensify that stretch and apply some resistance so your arms will go back much farther than if you are doing it by yourself. So that's going to help with that kyphotic posture. Another muscle that is impacted when we are slouching forward and our head is tilting back are going to be those muscles on the back of our neck. Those are also going to be contracted and pinched as well. So a specific muscle that can be impacted by this is called our levator scapulae muscle. It actually attaches at the top of your shoulder blade and the base of your skull. So it lines a pretty long length down your neck and into your upper back. So this muscle can be really important to stretch on a daily basis, especially if you are experiencing neck pain or upper back problems. And we can do this stretch once again in our chairs. So remain seated towards the end of your chair with your feet planted as well. And what we're going to do is take one of our free hands and we're going to reach directly behind us and either grab the bottom of your chair, or if you don't have an open space where you can grab your chair, you can just plant your hand flat behind you, just directly behind you, so that you are once again opening up that chest. And then that hand's also going to provide an anchor for you as you continue through the rest of this stretch. You can then take your free hand and pull your head down so your ear is moving towards your shoulder, almost like you're trying to touch your shoulder with your ear. You can hold this position for about 15 to 30 seconds or until you feel some type of release in that muscle. And then after you pull your ear down, you can turn your head to the side and begin to pull your nose towards your elbow or towards your armpit, just pulling in that direction as well. You're going to hold this for the same amount of time, 15 to 30 seconds. And then you're going to want to repeat it on both sides of your body. So same thing with that pectoralis stretch I showed you and with this levator scapulae stretch. You're going to always want to be performing stretches on both sides of your body because your body does mirror itself. So you have the same muscles on each side. So it's going to be a really good stretch, especially if you've never really stretched out that muscle before. Most of us have a very tight levator scapulae muscle. So once again, you can perform these every day just as a preventative care method. Performing them on either side, 15 to 30 seconds of hold is going to be a perfect way to really help prevent poor posture in the upper body.
Chloe, that's amazing how painful that was.
Yes, most people aren't aware how tight those muscles really are until they actually start to stretch them. So yeah, that was just a small portion of the corrective exercises lesson that I do teach. I typically will go through a full body assessment. We'll talk about the hips, do exercises as well with the stretches. So pretty beneficial for students to get up and moving, stay healthy in their body and in their mind. I also believe that physical activity helps students stay more engaged if they can get up and moving and get that blood flowing. I also teach did you have a question?
I was going to have, as Corey's putting the other screen back on to show all the other one you teach, I have a question. So this is great for us. I'm seeing comments in the chat box about it feeling wonderful. Oh, I don't want me on there. I want the presentation on there. So that was great for us, but how is that, if you're doing this, you have this available for students and teachers, like how is this related to instruction? Like how does that relate to the classroom?
So one, like I said, it does help keep students engaged because you are getting them up and moving and getting their blood flowing. And the corrective exercise continuum is something I specifically talk about in that lesson. And that continuum is something developed by the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And it's used by athletic trainers, physical therapists, sports med professionals. So it's definitely a tool that students who are interested in any of those fields are going to want to learn now and continue to implement throughout the rest of their education as well.
Chloe, I just wanted to hop in and let you know. So I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's in 4th grade, and you doing this totally makes me think of her. I'm going to have her watch this because right before the whole remote learning, they had been doing yoga during PE. Mm-hmm. And so now at night, a lot of times she wants me to sit and do yoga with her on the floor, and she loves it. So I can just imagine how if a teacher, teachers are watching this, and then when they're starting their online classes, they always start off with some type of stretching or maybe in the middle. I think the kids would just so buy into that and how beneficial it is. That's awesome.
Yeah, you definitely want to get that blood flowing throughout your body, and then it's also going to increase blood flow to the brain, which is going to ultimately keep us more focused. Yeah. I also do teach other lessons as well. I teach a sanitary practices and healthcare lesson where students will learn about personal protective equipment, proper hand hygiene practices, and then also make their own homemade hand sanitizer. But we have lessons associated with all of our colleges. We have a business lesson, engineering, theology, all of which can be accessed through that table, and it'll take you to a page much like what Corey has up on the screen. And that's just how students can register. They can pick the date and time that they prefer. They'll get a confirmation email with some more information about joining the meeting. And it's a fairly simple process just for students to get quickly signed up, and they'll have reminders along the way as well. We'll send out reminder emails a day in advance and an hour in advance just to keep it on their radar.
So Chloe, this sounds like a great resource for remote learning, but what happens if and when we go back to face-to-face? Is this still available? And how does it look when we are back face-to-face?
Yeah, that's something we're actually working on right now. We developed these with the at-home environment in mind. However, it is looking like this is something that we do want to try to maintain over a longer period of time, especially with much of the future being a little uncertain for some schools. So it's something that we plan to maintain for the foreseeable future, and we'll begin to continue to develop it so that it's more of a stable structure for when students are heading back to the classroom. That's definitely something that's in the discussion and in the works.
Great.
That's awesome. And I just put in the chat, like, if you think this is a great thing and you want to keep going, always a good idea to email Chloe, like, hey, well, I really like this. I wanted to keep going. And then she has some documentation, right, to say, hey, leaders, this is what our community wants. That's just a little plug for, people like me who need to stretch more often. I was amazed that the second the exercise was over, my posture went back, and I'm like, wait, just a minute, I just learned something. So thank you very much for that, Chloe. Boy, do we all need it, especially right now. And any other questions about this table? Boy, look at all these. There's STEM majors, psychology, college of business, club sports. You guys have really covered the gamut here. We appreciate you so much. If there's any questions, please pop them in the chat. We are so fortunate to have Chloe for a little while here. She is prepping for another lesson that she's going to jump on shortly. So, but she has graciously said that she'd stick around for our Q&A or come back for our Q&A about 10 till the hour. So we thank you, Chloe, for being here. In case anybody has some real specific questions, she'll pop back on and put those questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to get those to Chloe. You have her email there at the bottom, and we'd be happy to connect the two of you. Thanks, Chloe. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
I do feel a lot better already stretching, even though it hurt a lot. And what I do want to also add on is that GCU Live does have in-person lessons already when you go back to face-to-face, where we will actually send an expert out to your classroom and do a live feed with an expert on campus and help you run a hands-on activity in your classroom for you. So this is not just for remote learning. We're here to support you remotely or in person. To add on, so there was an example of, we brought an expert in, so we all had a shared experience stretching our very painful necks and backs. So other ways that you can have a shared experience to promote equity, and again, when I'm saying equity here, it's not about the financial or the device, it's about the background knowledge. And one way is to take virtual field trips, and there are thousands of virtual field trips out there. And so we have curated a list, not all of them, but we'll make that available to you, to places like zoos.
Oh, hang on. How about this one?
Museums, yes. There's a great one, Explore by the Seat of Your Pants, which has adventurers all around the world take you on a field trip with them. That's incredible. These are all free. I pulled together some that teachers have put together for families and teachers. So just think about taking a virtual field trip, and especially think about taking one where you don't know what you're going to learn too. You get to learn alongside the student. So what a great way to have a shared experience and build background knowledge together. Another way is to bring experts into your classroom. So GCU Live has lots of experts and lots of ways we can bring someone else into your classroom. But worldwide, there are experts that are willing to connect with your students. So NASA has live NASA chats that you can bring a NASA expert into your classroom virtually. The National Science Foundation has a speakers bureau. You just sign up and tell them what content area, and they'll connect virtually with you. Ask a Biologist is the one I love. That one's through ASU. Skype has an entire sign up where you can tell them what kind of expert you're looking for, and that expert will Skype with your students. So lots of ways to have excuse me, shared experiences with your students.
And it sounds to me like you have to do less work if somebody else is the expert, right? I'm always about less work.
And then Carolyn had some great ideas. K-8 is really her specialty, and where she had worked with parent and community volunteers. So I'll let her explain that.
Thanks, Marnie. So I have had, like I said, a majority of my experience in the K-8 setting, and I know that depending on your parents and in your community, a lot of times you have people who volunteer in the elementary school classrooms. And when I was thinking about this, I thought, why not continue that during this time of remote learning? I also always go back, Marnie and Corey are wonderful techie people, come up with all these great resources. I come up with some of those, but I always go back to the basics. I spent a lot of my time in Title I schools where students did not always have access to internet and things like that. So one of the things when you're thinking about involving the community is, what about reaching out to those parent volunteers who come into your classroom, or possibly community volunteers, firefighters, librarians, and saying, hey, would you like to help out? And you know how you used to come into the classroom and read with students on Tuesdays and Thursdays? What if I set it up to where you're able to call them or maybe FaceTime them? If they have devices and you're able to Zoom or something like that, you could do that on your phone as well. You could do that, and you can just listen to them read. How excited would a kiddo be to have a local fireman or the librarian call them at home and allow them to read to them, and then maybe they could read to the student as well? So it would take some planning and, of course, getting the approval from parents, everything like that. But I think that it would be an amazing experience and students I know would love it. So that's one idea. So now we move into this one, some other ways to foster community. One of the things on here you'll see is the Virtual Spirit Week. So this would work wonderfully if you were doing synchronous learning, but also asynchronous. This is something that you could send out to your students, and you'll notice on the picture of the Virtual Spirit Week that it says to send pictures. So as long as you have some way for your students to at least send pictures, whether it be via text message, Class Dojo, Remind. What I was thinking as I was looking at this was I said, wow, what a great idea. So they're sending me pictures of our Virtual Spirit Week. I'm compiling these and I can create some type of a class video that I could later share with them with all the pictures that they've sent. If it's something that we're doing synchronously, students of course would love it. And you'll see some of the topics real easy. I love the first one, Love Our Pets Day. What if they share a picture, or if you're doing it online, they're sharing their pet for a moment, how excited would they be? So these things do have some academic content to them, some of them, but really it's getting your kiddos to want to come. I know if my daughter knew she was going to get to share her pet, she'd be there 20 minutes early. She would be so excited.
Wouldn't it be fun to also kind of build around a spirit week for like sending off the 6th graders, especially now in this remote learning time? Like it might be kind of fun to have, like, you know, each day of the week is some spirit piece that helps to send them off into the 7th grade.
I love it. You know, thinking of that, my community, they're doing like lawn signs for high school students, but you could do that for any grade graduating. Maybe if you got everybody's name, each student could make a lawn sign and put that in their yard.
Idea.
One of the graduating students. Good idea.
That's a neat, you know, segue into our next week. We'll be talking about digital ceremonies, so that might be a nice segue, you know, to move into your digital ceremony. But anyway, just talking. Snail mail, right?
Snail mail. So we all know what snail mail is, and with snail mail, I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't like going to the mailbox because I don't want to get bills or things that I don't want. However, if I open my mailbox and I see a letter or something exciting, maybe a package I've been waiting for, I'm like, yes. I still go to the mailbox like I'm a kid sometimes. It's sort of strange. But how do you think your students would feel? They would be so excited to get a piece of snail mail from their teacher, perhaps another student. So here you'll see there's 2 pages. I'm not going to read over this, but gives you a setup. If you wanted to start sort of a snail mail chain for your class, it tells you how you could go ahead and do that pretty easily. And on the 2nd page, it's just a template that you could use to write a note and then give simple instructions for your kiddos to continue the chain. And I think that would be something that they would really enjoy. And once again, it would foster that community, not only the community, your classroom community, but possibly with others as well.
Carolyn, this is a great resource that you created for our audience here. And I love how you said, I would forget this part, 3 stamps. If you could add 3 stamps, I think you mentioned earlier, yeah, Corey, that makes it more likely that you'd get a letter back, right? So really cool, thinking of equity here to add those stamps.
And I mentioned, of course, I mean, teachers spend so much of their own money, but go to your administrator, see, maybe they can do some free postage paid envelopes for you. There are different ways that you could get that paid for, so.
Super. And then you have another great resource that you've created for our audience here.
Yeah, so this one would be a monthly activity. I really like it because it's keeping your kiddos busy throughout an entire month, keeping them accountable. In the directions at the top, basically, it tells them that they're going to try to get a bingo, whether it be horizontal, vertical, whatever it might be. But the real incentive up there at the top, if you could scroll down just a little bit, Corey.
Yep, sorry.
Is that we always think of things that we do in class, like incentives, like, oh, you get to eat lunch with the teacher. Well, here I added the incentive that if they complete the whole bingo sheet, their name would go into a raffle to have their teacher perhaps deliver a lunch to their front door. So something like that, I definitely.
Am I on the right area here, Carolyn? Is it on
You're
there?
right there. Right there is fine. You can see complete all boxes, and your name will get put in a raffle. And
oh, here you go. Yeah. Very cool.
And you can take a look. All of the activities on the bingo board go from something like practicing math flashcards to reading to an animal to cleaning your room without being asked and sending your teacher a picture of that.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Yes, love that idea.
So
Do you think it'll work for a 16-year-old? Okay, all right.
maybe for
Moving
free
along.
lunch. Maybe if it's in
Yeah,
and out.
point
And
well made. Free lunch is a good one.
Remind
and
you
then
that all
the
of these
last,
documents that we're sharing, again, you will have links to those in the discussion notes, and you can actually make a copy and edit them to fit your students as well.
absolutely. And those could definitely be for older students as well. It's just going to, the activities you include are just going to vary, sort of like the one you're seeing right now, another scavenger hunt. So this one says, take a walk around your house and take some pictures of these things, send them to your teacher, but also what are you finding? So here we go. This one's math, a symmetrical shape, an asymmetrical shape, a 1-foot object. So it's encouraging your students to get up and move, but it's also encouraging them to then have something to come back to the teacher or the whole class if you're meeting online to share. And I think that that would be a really engaging activity and a way to build community as well. And last but not least, so I showed you a lot of print resources that you could get out to your kiddos, but here is a wonderful online resource. I know it looks pretty busy, but it includes oodles and oodles of online scavenger hunts that your students can do. So once again, this link will be included, and you can head there and you can check some of these out.
Carolyn, thank you so much for all of your great activities. You know, I love the perspective of an elementary school teacher. I am, you know, I'm embedded in this high school world just because that's where I spent most of my time. But quite frankly, most of my students really benefit well from from elementary school perspective, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be loved. We want to belong. We want to know that we matter. So thank you so much for creating all of these great activities for us. And again, those will be at the YouTube channel. So please don't worry if you haven't found them yet. Those are the couple of slides that go with that. So make sure that you visit that. Anything else, Carolyn, that you wanted to leave them with?
No, I saw in the chat somebody saying that they were applicable to high school, and I absolutely agree. And like we said, you can modify these, you can make them work for you. Really fun ways to build community and get your kiddos up and moving. So thank you.
I'm hearing build community, right? So there it is, equity. How do we, you know, foster that community? So Marnie talked about virtual shared experiences and in-person shared experiences, like the fireman coming, you know, to read. Even that's kind of blended, right? Like maybe he's at the YouTube channel and he's reading something, and kids can check it out. But if they're reading directly to your students, that's really exciting. And then and then Carolyn showed all kinds of resources for you to really engage with your students and get them to foster that community. So I'm going to kind of close out our webinar today with rewards, incentives and rewards. Well, we do know a little bit about incentive and how incentives create motivation. So just real quickly here, a couple of links here. I'm just going to show you. That first link goes to this comprehensive guide to digital badges. So if you're not sure what a digital badge is, you can read this kind of overview of digital badges from Accredible, which is a really neat site that's going to show, I'll show you how to make a digital badge. But I like this. It says the many functions. What does a digital badge do? Motivate participation, motivate collaboration, recognition, assessment, act as an alternative credential, thinking of the digital ceremony coming soon, and then also represent competencies. So you can use a digital badge for each one of those areas. And I wanted to just give you some theory behind a digital badge for that purpose. Also, I have a tip of the day that talks about CommonSense Education and their student badges. That's what you see the picture of above. CommonSense Education, if you haven't been there, is a wonderful site. This really talks a lot about digital citizenship. So go check that out when you have a moment. Check out the tip of the day. Because we're going to start running low on time here, I want to just cram as much as I can into this last little bit. We have what's called a badge builder, and you can create your own badge. And Marnie and I talked about this. She said, okay, Corey, I went in to try to create a badge because I wanted to make sure that you're not giving somebody something too hard to do. So Marnie, tell them what you thought.
Well, I thought, oh my goodness, people are going to revolt. Are you kidding? You want me to make my own badge? Listen, so I went into this tool and it was so easy. You just pick a template, you click text, and you can start typing in it immediately. And it was maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and I had my own custom badge that I put the Canyon PD icon in. And so, yeah. So look at, I get my own personal Marnie's a Rockstar badge. I love it. So even if you have, think of this, your school website probably has their logo. You can just download that logo. You could upload it and stick it right on the badge. So super easy to make. You do not have to have any technical skills. You just use the little templates at the left and type in there and you're done. Did you have to pay to do that?
Not a dime, but I will say that once it says download the badge right there, it asks me for my email address.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. Let's see how quickly we can make a digital badge.
Done.
And done. Okay, so in case you were wondering how hard it was to make a digital badge, that's how hard it is. Obviously, you might want to add some extra tips and tricks there. But you can see you can add your own logo, which I did here. And you know, everybody likes those reward points. How many of you get fuel points? Guilty as charged, whether or not I get my gift cards at Fry's just so I can get fuel points. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay, so clearly that's a motivator for me. And so I've created a little activity here for you if you want it, great. And it's just a little rewards points. So you've got all this stuff. I don't need to go into it. You can kind of come back and check that out. As you can see, I'm running a little low on time here. There's a little bit of
quick.
Yeah,
you had a good question. Is just how do you send the badges? That's a good question. So even if you just type that in the
Thank you so much, Carol, for letting me know. See, clearly I am trying to roll through content. I don't know if that's a good strategy as a teacher because you miss what your students really want to hear. So Corey's going to slow down. Here's how you do it. So right there, if you can see on my screen, there's my downloaded badge, and I can upload that in Google Classroom if I wanted to add it that way. I can send it to an email address if I wanted to add it that way. Marnie, Carolyn, do you have any ideas about how to send a digital badge here?
With those, can you get an embed code also? I don't know. You could do that and embed it. And that's a little higher level, but for those of you who are familiar with it. But yeah, you could just, once you have it, you can copy and paste it right onto things.
Copy and paste. You can have a QR code point to a digital badge. So lots of ideas there. Super great question, and thank you for asking it, and thank you for slowing me down. That's always a good thing. So very last but not least, if I want to really pull that word equity and those two words, equity and relevance, back into the conversation here. You are most likely at a school that already has a behavioral plan in place. Many schools are what we call PBIS schools, or positive behavior interventions and supports. Make Your Day, lots of different behavioral plans that are already out there. So I encourage you to remain aligned to your school's vision and mission. They have a purpose. Stay there. If you're a PBIS school, I found some really great resources. This particular resource will direct you to, talking a little bit about e-learning, right? And PBIS distance learning rewards for teachers, for parents, for students. So make sure to check that out when you have a minute. And they also have some virtual incentive ideas, which are great. And then Marnie also let us know about this Phoenix Metro PBIS. Tell us a little bit about that, Marnie.
If you're a PBIS school, there's already a group in the PBIS Phoenix Metro that you can belong to. It doesn't cost anything. And it just, they have regular meetings where you can learn about PBIS, learn about new opportunities. We always have somebody come in and visit that has the research behind how and why PBIS works, which relates to the digital badges, recognition, catch them doing good, like you said, catch them doing a good thing. So we'll make sure you have that
in the act. Right.
There we go.
I had kind of put that in there, and Marnie was probably like, what is it? She didn't talk about that. And you absolutely pulled that in. Thank you, Marnie. We want to catch our students in the act of doing something good. And it doesn't have to be something astronomical. If they showed up to your lesson, give them a badge. If they turned one assignment in, give them some recognition for that. And that acknowledgement is what is really talked about in that PBIS area there, where I've added some links. And there I am going fast again, trying to slow down here, Marnie. Yeah, Carolyn, you just can't rope me in, can you? It's hard to do. It's hard to do, but hopefully through all of that, you have understood how relationships, rigor, and relevance work together to increase that student motivation and equity through remote learning. You've seen a little bit about shared experiences. You've seen a little bit about shared sense of community and using incentives. Oh, we're about ready to get to that evaluation. So you know what's happening, Melissa. Get ready for Tool Master. Get ready. Remember that we are here to support you, inspire you, empower you, to educate, inspire your community so they take action to fulfill their purpose and serve others. That's what we're all about, is to serve you. Let us know how we can do that. As I say that, we're going to kind of close with some, again, Corey's going to slow down, and we're going to remember our creator in all of this. So Peter's going to be on here in just a little bit to pray with us. But before we do that, Marnie, I think I see the toolbox.
Yeah,
I see
so
that.
Tool Master, you've got a few moments right here to kind of put that list together. Once you have it, if you'll paste it in the chat, and I think that was Melissa, or Apple Melissa, how I know you. Thank you, Melissa. And then for the rest of you, notice the little takeaway or the takeout container. This is our time to reflect. If you could everyone put something in the chat. What's one big takeaway that you have from our webinar today? So we're looking for some feedback. What is the takeaway you have from our webinar? While you're typing in there, Corey's going to tell us about our upcoming webinars.
Yes, and don't forget today at 3:30, the Arizona School Boards Association addressing trauma during emergency remote learning. Would love to share that link there with you all. So make sure that you jump into the chat and pick up that link. That's today at 3:30. And then next week, join us for digital ceremonies. We talked a little bit about incentives today. We're going to carry that theme into next week. We'll talk about digital ceremonies and how you can make your students feel special, especially those 6th graders or 8th graders or seniors who are making their way onto the next chapter in their lives. We really want to be with you and support you with some tips, tricks, and tools that will help there. May 20th and 27th, based on your feedback. So please fill out that evaluation so that we can get some good ideas as to what you would like to see us address here on our weekly Wednesday webinars. All right, Tool Master, where are we? Are we this chat is going so fast I can barely keep up.
Yeah, it is. And you know what I really noticed too? I mean, everybody's really having a lot of takeaways from this, but I saw badges several times. So I know we kind of sped through badges. We will go into more depth and take more time next week with the digital ceremonies and talk about badges. So no worries.
Thanks for letting me know that, Marnie. And I did cruise through that because it's already 10:55, and I want to make sure that Peter has his time to be able to pray with us.
Yes.
I really do feel like that's the most important piece,
so
oftentimes. So thank you.
Let's go ahead and go to the next.
All right, thank you, Tool Master. We have so many tools there. We appreciate you. Don't forget, there's your bit.ly Canyon PD webinar. That is where you're going to get your PD certificate. It's called Motivating Online Learners. And for those of you who are stepping out, we thank you for being here, but I really hope you don't step out, because we now have a wonderful moment here where Peter Mokert is going to pray with us. He's going to take us through Hebrews 3:12 through 15. Peter, are you with us?
As we wait for Peter
Yes.
to get set up with his video and his microphone there, I just want to let everyone know that not only did Melissa share the tools, Apple Melissa, she created a shared document. We will capture that, that awesome document. I'll capture that right now, and we'll make sure that that link also goes in our discussion notes. So wow, thanks, Melissa. All right, I'm sorry, Peter. I just had to let everyone know that. Thank you.
Oh, Melissa, we are indebted. Thank you so much. You did it the way it can be done. That's wonderful. Thanks again to all of you, all of our participants. And now we're just going to quiet down, and I'm going to pass the baton to Peter so he can take me through what clearly I need to calm down and remember why we do this for sure. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Marnie, and everyone else. So the selection that I picked today is from Hebrews. See to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a full unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God, but encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ if we hold on firmly till the end the confidence we had at first. Just as it has been said, if you do not harden your hearts as they did in the rebellion. So today my words of this, we learned about motivating the online learner. We learned about techniques, stretching techniques, different things that can personally, professionally, but I want to offer encouragement for us especially that we think about how we and grow in our walk with Jesus. And I just want to take a minute that we encourage one another. So we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to gather as brothers and sisters in Christ. And even though that this is a virtual setting, we know that you are with us. And we ask that you would help us fulfill those words in that the writers of the Hebrews offered when it says that we encourage one another daily, that none of us would harden our hearts, but that we would turn to you. We recognize that there are so many things going on. There are so many people that are scared, that are worried, that you would use each one of us to be those disciples, to carry the name of Jesus to everyone that we interact with, whether it be through our words, through our actions, and most importantly, through love, through the love that you shared on the cross, Lord Jesus. You would be with us all and help us all during this challenging and interesting time. We ask this all through Christ our Lord. Amen.